Confessed hitman John Martorano wraps up 3 days as a key witness for the prosecution. How Whitey Bulger's defense team tried to cast doubt on his testimony. Plus, are the scales of justice tipped in favor of the accused? Attorney Wendy Murphy weighs in. And Jared Bowen shows us the great lengths the Gardner Museum went to spruce up some centuries-old tapestries. Now on Greater Boston. Good evening. He killed for business, but he doesn't lie for money. That's the line from John Martorano. The admitted hitman was on the stand again today in the James Whitey Bulger trial, where he's implicated Bulger in several mob hits. But today, the defense put Martorano on the defense by accusing him of profiting from his crimes by way of a book and movie deal. Adam Riley has more.
John Martorano, a star prosecution witness in the criminal trial of James Whitey Bulger, is a former Bulger associate who acknowledges killing 20 people during his career. Today in court, Martorano admitted he's cashed in on his crimes, making $70,000 for the book Hitman, co-written with Boston Herald columnist Howie Carr, and selling the movie rights to his story. The defense says that doesn't square with Martorano's claims of remorse. But today, Martorano had a simple explanation. You can't change the past. I still have to make a living for my family.
All right, and with me now is Adam Riley and Boston Herald columnist Peter Gelzinis. Welcome.
Hey, Emily.
So this was day 3. Just take us back, because we've had a lot of other stuff going on here. He is one of the key prosecution witnesses. And as we talked the other day, he made some connections between these murders and Whitey Bulger, but not that many. Has it progressed beyond that?
I think, I don't know if Peter would agree with this, but I felt like on Monday that the connections to Bulger were a little more tenuous. On Tuesday, they seemed to intensify. And then, in the past couple of days, the defense has been able to push back. For example, arguing that he never talked with Bulger before murdering Roger Wheeler, the world highlight owner. Right. So, there's been sort of a push and pull trying to point to Bulger, and then the defense trying to deflect away from Bulger. And there's no question, I think, that Martorano has implicated Bulger in a whole bunch of bad stuff over the past couple of days. Maybe not everything the prosecution wants.
After a kind of blistering cross-examination, Wyshak got up and the prosecutor got up and said to him, "Did you and Whitey Bulger kill?" And then he went down the list of about 8 people. And to each one, Martorano croaked out, correct. And it was what Fred Wyshak needed to do, because I think what Hank Bredin, the Whitey's co-counsel along with Jay Carney, did was really twist Martorano up into the kind of moral ambiguity of this whole thing. I mean, none of what he said the first day was I think it's a shock to hear it for the first time, and it was for me when I heard it 12 years ago at John Conley's trial, when he first kind of exploded onto the public scene in this way. But the fascinating thing for me about this is kind of what Brennan was getting at. The idea of the moral justification. How do you deal with this? How do you live with this? And the deals that they made with the government, the kind of incentives the government gave him. And will it change the ultimate landscape here or the outcome? Probably not. But
we touched on that. I mean, it's still shocking. And just to review for everybody, I mean, he cut this deal, goes to jail for 12 years. The government was putting money into his commissary account.
$6,000 into his
canteen account, right?
Canteen account for, over the course of 12 years. By the way, most prisoners have access to no money. So the fact that this murderous thug got that kind of, and when he got out, he needed some walk-away money. The government gave him $20,000 after he left prison, something else that no other prisoner gets.
And basically they allowed he gave the money to his ex-wife, but, he had a house in Florida, as was pointed out, that was paid by illegal means, illegal money, because he was, booking and doing nefarious things down there in Florida. This is when he was in Florida. and was allowed to give the sale of that house, about $200,000, to his ex-wife.
Yeah. And then $70,000 from the book that he co-writes, and then sells the movie rights to his life.
And what point were they trying to make about that?
The big point, I believe, is that the prosecution wants people to think that no matter how much of a scumbag he may be, that Martorano is going to give a credible account of Whitey Bulger's sins. And the defense wants to say, this guy's not credible at all. And the reason they're hammering, him making money off all this horrible stuff he's done is because toward the end of his testimony, he told the prosecutor that he had, deep regret for the life of crime. He wishes his life hadn't been this way, that he regrets what he's done. And the point of saying identifying all the money he's made is to say, you don't act like this, you don't make money off this stuff if you genuinely regret it.
And then he asked him, well, did you give any of the money to the victims? And of course, his answer
victims'
was
families. And he said, no, I had a family.
The whole thing was summed up beautifully with the question that Brennan posed to me. Said, other than killing 20 people, what other notable things have you done in your life?
Really? What did he say?
And he said, he kind of just sort of shifted in the chair and said, I can't change it. I can't change it. This is my life. And yet, today he admitted, which I hadn't heard before, was that he sold, independent of the book, he sold the movie rights himself for $250,000. If the project gets made, he gets another $250,000.
Oh, is that?
If it's greenlighted, he gets another $250,000. And I'm not a movie critic, but this isn't The Sopranos here. This is And Then I Killed. I mean, I don't know. It gets pretty tedious pretty quick in some respects when you get into this litany of there's nothing else in there.
They were going through this list of people, and Adam, you were telling me that the defense was very resistant on certain photographs that they not be included, and we looked at them. They are gruesome, but gosh, not that much more gruesome than a lot of the things that are in.
And that was actually after Martorano's testimony wrapped up, and they brought in this Boston police sergeant detective who was introducing crime scene photos just of murders related to Bulger that occurred in Boston. So we saw these images, and I got to say, I saw them from the media room initially. And maybe I missed the worst ones, but I remember seeing a lot of stills of cars from a distance or cars with their windows shot out. I was looking at the images again before we started the show, and some of them are really grisly. Blood, like a massive amount of blood on the seat of a car. We're not going to show some of the worst ones. A corpse on the morgue table or a corpse slumped in a phone booth. They're pretty nasty. And Bulger's defense team argued that these would be unduly prejudicial, that they didn't establish much by way of means of death, that sort of thing, but that they might. As I think the defense's motion, but excite the jury inappropriately.
But it would show you that it was a human being, that it was someone, as opposed to some of those car photographs we just looked at.
Well, the judge rejected that defense request, as I think she should.
So they're going to include them.
They were shown.
Yeah.
But the families of Callahan and somebody else were very, very resistant on this. They didn't want the photos in.
No, I mean, I think it's going to be jarring for them. I mean, they've probably lived with these images or the images they've conjured up in their minds, but there is, it's almost as if, in a way, the suffering that they've dealt with, is almost boosted to an extreme that they can't control.
Along those lines, it was interesting. Tommy Donahue, who's been a really son of an alleged Bulger victim, who's been very outspoken. He was talking outside court today and saying, I'm paraphrasing, but this is the gist. You sit there in court, and it's death after death after death, and they all kind of blur together. Well, my father was one of those deaths, and I want to make sure that people get that, that he was an individual. He wasn't just part of this chain of violence. Right. But then Donahue was asked, well, how would you feel about the images of, his death being shown in court? And he said, I'm 50-50 on that. When it happens, if it happens, I'll probably look away. So on the one hand, you want to have people recognize the grisly reality of your loved one's death. But on the other hand, as Peter was saying, it's got to be a brutal thing to look at, especially after all these years.
So meanwhile, Peter, they're saying this trial could go for 3 months. I don't frankly see how. If this is the prosecution's ace in a hole, you don't want to get too far out.
Well, you still have.
You forget about.
This is going to be replayed. What happened with Martorano is going to be replayed with Kevin Weeks and Stephen Flemmi, and if they bring a couple of other people up, it'll probably be replayed as well. You're right, though. I don't know. I think this may decide to speed along quicker than they say. But, it depends on I would think, on how extensively they get into some of these back and forths. But I think, for me, I think the interesting thing about this is the idea of, and still, again, it doesn't change the outcome, but I think the idea of getting home the point to the jury that, you're going to see a lot of monsters here, and it's not just that guy sitting at the table. There are going to be people who will walk out of here after telling you stories that are going to curl your hair.
Yeah, horrible. All right. Good job, Adam. Keep it in the courtroom. You too, Peter.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.